Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Julie, and tonight's video we are going to continue on our book, The Way of the Warrior. I hope you're all enjoying it. I am, and I'm actually really trying to apply what I'm reading to my mind. Because a lot of times I'll read something and I won't retain the information. I'll know what I'm reading at the moment, but retaining information for some reason has become a little bit more difficult for me in the past few years. So I'm having like those cognitive issues. But anyway, for some reason though, this book, it's really sticking out to me, and I'm remembering a lot of what I've read, and I like it. I like this book. I like the way he writes. So I've highlighted some things of our last read that I thought were pretty captivating. I highlighted, your mindset filters out information that disagrees with your view of reality, and if it doesn't filter it out, it distorts it to conform to your view of reality. The thoughts that your mindset allows to move quickly through to your conscious mind are the ones that reaffirm already held beliefs and convictions. I had to turn off the coffee machine. And I also highlighted 80% of our thoughts can be negative and repetitive. I highlighted a lot from our last read because everything was just so great. I'm having issues with my vision today too. The extreme version of mind control would cause you to no longer be able to think for yourself. The opposite version is to actually believe you can think for yourself because you've never taken time to deconstruct your mind. You never even ask yourself the hard question, how did I come to see the world this way? Let's see. The way of the warrior is the path to a new mindset. The warrior has a new mind. Paul tells us that when our minds are renewed, Paul in the Bible, Paul tells us that when our minds are renewed, it is then and only then that we are able to test and approve what the will of God is. When we see the world from this new mind, we will see that God's intention for us is good and pleasing and perfect. God's intention for us is good, it's pleasing, and it's perfect. It makes perfect sense that an infinite God would have an infinite number of beautiful futures awaiting us. In fact, one of the most reassuring promises in Scripture is that God can create the most beautiful future out of our imperfection and brokenness. What if there was an endless number of futures awaiting us, but the portal through which we enter into those futures is shaped by the choices we make? The future is not linear, it is dynamic. The future is not determined, it is created. This is why it is so critical to know your mind. It is your mind that the future begins. The warrior understands that the world's best future will not come without a battle. The warrior does not fight to hold on to the past. Oh, so true. But rather to take hold of the future. The future belongs to those with the courage to create it. This is the way of the warrior. The warrior has learned that if their mind is lost in the past, they will lose their future. That's been happening to me, and that's why I've been telling you. Talking to you, not telling you. I've been talking about how I've been praying about getting out of the past and how my little spiritual car was just towed from the past and God brought it up to the future. He brought it to the current and to the present, and I'm feeling better. I am. I keep praying about it. Your mindset is the filter through which you see your potential futures. I highlighted so much. This is going to take up a lot of time. Your mindset shapes how you see reality, but more important, it shapes how you see your future. Do not allow your mind to be shaped by any patterns that would steal from you the hope that God created you to live in. Even in the most difficult and painful times, you would see every moment as a promise that God would meet you there. You would never see anything in life as a dead end, because you'd know that God would be always... Sorry, I can't see. Everything gets blurry sometimes. Even in the most difficult and painful times, you would see every moment as a promise that God would meet you there. You would never see anything in life as a dead end, because you'd know that God would always guide you a way through. I highlighted more, but I'm just going to take up too much time. I told you I highlighted so much from our last read because so much stood out to me. But if I read all those highlighted stuff, we'll be here for an hour. Okay, so tonight we're going to start Code 5. And Code 5 is called The Warrior Owns Defeat. So here we go. The warrior knows that honor is not found in the victory. Honor is found in the nobility of the battle. If the battle is not worthy of a warrior's life, there is no honor in its victory. In the same way, the warrior knows that there is no dishonor in defeat. Failure and defeat are not the same. To fear defeat is to surrender victory. There is only a good fight and a good death for one whose life is given to the noble. The warrior never claims victory for themselves, but only for others. The warrior never claims victory for themselves, but only for others. In the same way, the warrior never gives blame for defeat, but owns it for themselves. The warrior owns defeat, and therefore defeat never owns the warrior. The warrior who lives and dies with honor enters eternity undefeated. The ancient samurai understood that even in defeat there was an honorable death, for if you never lose your honor, you cannot die in defeat. Both in life and in death, the warrior never relinquishes their power. They do not place blame nor abdicate responsibility. This is the life they have chosen. This is the path that called them forward. There is only defeat if you betray yourself and forsake your calling. The warrior's legend is that they cannot be defeated. The warrior knows that they are the most powerful when they take ownership for everything entrusted to them, yet they claim ownership over nothing. The warrior takes complete responsibility while never holding tightly to anything. They take full responsibility without ever needing any praise. In this way, the warrior owns both everything and nothing. Because the warrior lives with open hands, nothing can be taken from them. The warrior is free from all things, and therefore is free to enjoy all things. Everything is borrowed. Even those things that we consider our possessions will one day belong to someone else, or perhaps to no one at all. This is why, in most cases, the concept of ownership is an illusion. Ownership is not about possession, it is about the responsibility. What you own matters far less than what you take ownership for. What you take responsibility for is far more important than what you think you own. One of the great traps on earth is to spend more of your time and energy trying to own things rather than owning your own life. Your greatest stewardship is how you live your life that you've been given. It is a strange thing that we can own something and abdicate our own ownership of ourselves. Without recognizing it, we all too often relinquish the ownership of our own lives to the slavery of another. Whatever the circumstances, when we hold someone else responsible for our lives or for the condition of our lives, we are abdicating the responsibility that has been entrusted to us. We are far more compelled by possession than by responsibility. We want to own, but we don't want to take ownership. If you have taken ownership of your life, you have come to know your own power. You don't stagger through life with a sense of powerlessness. You know who you are, and that you are ultimately responsible for the future you create and the choices that you make. Choosing doesn't just happen, it's how you make things happen. Going forward, the freedom of responsibility. Adam and Eve were placed in the middle of a garden and lived in what could only be described as paradise. In the garden, there were two trees that had become part of the infamous beginning of the human story. One tree that nurtured life, and one that would end it. Of course, God gave Adam and Eve a choice. Actually, God gave them endless choices. As we saw earlier, that command was to eat freely. There was an endless number of trees in the garden from which they were allowed to eat as much and as often as they desired. However, there was one tree that they were forbidden to eat from. Because man was created free, this tree had to exist. Without choice, there is no freedom. Without freedom, there is no choice. God instructed the first man and woman not to eat of this tree, because this choice would lead to their death. You would think the ominous nature of the warning would have been enough to keep them from it, but as we know, it was not. They ate of the tree, and for the first time came to know shame. Shortly afterward, God came to them, as I imagine he always did, but this time they hid themselves. They were naked and afraid. God called to the man, and the man said, "I heard you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid." The Creator asked the most curious of questions. Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree that I commanded you not to eat from? The man's response was quite unexpected. Rather than taking responsibility for what he had just done, he threw Eve under the bus. There is a bit of comedic irony in his response. He says to God, "The woman that you put here with me, she gave me some fruit from the tree and I ate it." Sorry, guys. In one sentence, the man blames everyone else involved except himself. He says to God, "The woman you put here, God, it's your fault. I was doing great while I was here alone. You put her here, and your decision has led to my demise." It's interesting to note that the man's first instinct was to blame God for the consequence of his own choice. Without missing a beat or wasting a breath, after blaming God, he blamed the woman. "She gave me some fruit from the tree. God, it's your fault, and if you are unwilling to take responsibility, then I have a backup plan for you. It's the woman's fault. In fact, it's everyone's fault except my own. You put the woman here. She gave me the fruit from the tree. All I did was eat it." Adam's entire response to God was one of abandonment of personal ownership and responsibility for his actions. He played the victim and painted himself as a passive participant in the crisis he himself had created. Then it seems God turned to the woman and asked her, "What is this that you have done?" I kind of feel sorry for her. The man was able to answer first, so she had no one left to blame. He had already blamed God and already blamed her and postured himself as an innocent bystander. She must have looked around and decided there was only one party left to blame. Her response, "The serpent deceived me, and I ate." She had fewer people to blame, but instead of taking responsibility for her own actions, she blamed the snake. In a strange twist, the snake had no one to blame, but had in fact done exactly what he intended. If you're not familiar with the story of the two trees, it's important to understand that this was the moment in which humanity was introduced to death. What makes this exchange perplexing is that from every perceivable angle, the man and woman looked completely and fully alive. It's hard to know that you are dead when you don't know how to identify the symptoms. In one moment, humanity went from the fullness of life to mere existence. In one moment, humanity went from the fullness of life to mere existence. And the first symptoms of this change were shame and the birth of blame. The symptoms of existence are visible through all human history and within the heart of every individual who has ever walked this earth. If humanity were fully alive, we would know all we would know is a world filled with hope and joy and love and meaning. Every human action would be an expression of generosity and compassion and kindness. The symptoms of mere existence are evidenced in our deep sense of disconnection, desperate loneliness, and prevailing meaningless. To not know love is to merely exist. To not have hope is to merely exist. To live without intention is a symptom that we have lost our lives and know only existence. God has entrusted everything to man and woman. He has placed everything under their authority. He had given them ownership, not possession, but responsibility over all creation. There was no question about who was responsible, and there was no room for blame shifting. Yet neither the man nor the woman took responsibility for their actions. Neither of them owned their choices, and both of them acted as if they were powerless and merely victims of a more ominous force that they could not resist. How difficult would it have been to have simply said, "It was my fault, and I take responsibility. You gave me stewardship over creation, and I betrayed your trust." Wouldn't it have been far more nobler for the man to stand between God and the woman and say, "It was all on me, this was not on her"? Yet instead of standing as her shield, he threw her under the bus. This was not simply the beginning of blame nor the end of taking responsibility. It was the end of love. If Adam loved Eve more than he loved himself, he would never have made this choice or placed blame on her. His instincts shifted from self-sacrifice to self-preservation. Imagine God in this moment. Imagine being him in this moment, watching a creature you'd made in your image and likeness chose to protect himself rather than the one you had created for his love. Eve was unprotected because she was unloved. Adam acted in fear because he had lost the courage that only love can compel. Then again, the woman had her opportunity for ownership as well. After she watched her husband cower and abdicate responsibility for his choice, she could have taken responsibility for handing him the fruit. She could have stood before God and said, "I listened to the wrong voice and I made the wrong choice. Do with me as you will, this is on me." But she didn't do that either. It is not incidental that one of the first consequences of the fall is the abdication of personal responsibility for our actions. To blame others is an act of cowardice. We blame in an attempt to hide our shame. This is not the way of the warrior. The warrior understands that to blame is not simply an abdication of responsibility, but a relinquishing of power. You cannot change what you do not take responsibility for. When you blame someone else, you become dependent on that individual to solve your problem and change your circumstance. After all, if it's that person's fault, then he or she is the only one who has the power to change your condition. And I'm going to stop there. And we're going to continue on in the next video to read about the weight of responsibility. So, once again, that read that we just did spoke to me, and I felt some convictions going on in my heart as I was reading. And I'll tell you, I'll confess it to you right now. We live in this travel trailer, and I cannot stand it. I'm grateful to have a home. I'm grateful to have shelter and a roof over my head, yes. But it has gotten so dysregulating on my body and on my mind and on my whole nervous system. And because my husband is obviously the head of the household and he makes the ultimate decisions on everything, I have been kind of putting blame on him for the reason why we've been in this travel trailer for so long. And even though we're moving and even though we're looking now, I have found myself blaming him for my dysregulation, when in reality I should have been working within myself, and with the help of God, of course, with God's strength and the power of prayer, and dealing with my own stuff without blaming my husband for it. And that's the convictions I was feeling as I was reading this. And see, this book is teaching me, and I hope you're getting something out of it too. My eyes are really dry tonight. I wore my contacts today, and I'm telling you what, this Southwest climate, I don't think I can wear my contacts. I can only wear them for a short period of time before they get really dry. And even after I take them out, my eyes just feel really dry. Even reading, every once in a while the words would get blurry because my eyes so dry. And being from the east, I'm still not used to the desert climate. And we've been here for, oh gosh, 3 years now, going on 4. So we've been here for 3.5 years. And the dryness of this climate is, it's hard to get used to. So anyway, enough about that. I am going to go now, and I'm going to finish my hot beverage. And what time is it? It's almost 9 o'clock at night here. My husband already went to bed. He got up super early this morning. He had to work on something, paperwork for something. And so he got up super, super early to work on that. And so he went to bed at like 7 o'clock tonight. So he's been sleeping. And so I kind of have the whole main area of the travel trailer to myself. But now I'm kind of like, I don't know what to do. So maybe I'll just go to bed too. Anyway, I never know how to end my videos. That's another thing that I have. It's weird, like my speeches and my like verbiage does not flow. I don't have any like scripted ways of doing my videos either. Like I kind of got down the beginning part, like welcome to my channel, my name is Julie. Like that part I'm starting to get down, but the endings of my videos, they're still just a mess. I don't know. I never know how to let you go. I don't. So like, what do? Just say, okay, bye, and hit the button? Okay, well, I'll see you later on the next video. Until then, have a good night. And, okay, bye.